Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're looking in this lesson at reporting and monitoring user activity, and it's the final lesson within the series all about security administration within Sage CRM. Today's objective is to understand how to report and monitor user activity within Sage CRM. And we're going to explore both the administrative monitoring tools and also the reporting functionality. And so this session is going to be particularly relevant for system administrators and CRM managers. As I said, we've come to the end of the cycle of lessons within the topic of system administration, and all of these lessons are going to be added to the training course that is on the Sage Support and Training YouTube channel. More of that in a moment. So today in this lesson, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be locating the user activity screens. You're going to be able to understand how we monitor the log on, log off activity and identify those users who are currently logged on into the system, and then to be able to filter and analyze the usage data that's available to us. We'll also do some housekeeping. We'll look at the idea of exporting and archiving activity data and the running of user activity reports that are available to the system administrator, and understand how monitoring supports license management and security. So monitoring is not just about auditing, it's larger than that, because we can think about it for compliance, for license management, troubleshooting and governance of the system. And as I said, everything that we cover in today's lesson is going to be recorded, and it's going to be included within the Sage Support and Training YouTube channel inside the course Security Administration. So let's get going and let's start understanding why we would need to monitor user activity in the first place. Well, we have a responsibility as system administrators to our organizations and to the rules by which that organization is covered, whether it is to do with external legislation or it's to do with industry regulation. There are always going to be security and compliance, making sure that people are logging onto the system as and when they should. And in the case of systems which are holding personally identifiable information of a sensitive nature, then you need to be able to ensure that you are demonstrating your ability and responsibility as a data controller about who has access to that data. It's also very useful from actually a customer's perspective in terms of license optimization. You might be able to use this to establish who of your staff are actually benefiting from a Sage CRM license. You can identify inactive users and then go through the reallocation. It's also very useful from a troubleshooting perspective. If people are finding themselves logging on and being forced out, there might be information within the logs and within the tables where the information is held that starts to establish and help with the understanding of system usage patterns as well. Also pretty good to be able to work out when is a ideal time to be able to do something like a stop and a restart of the Sage CRM server by working out what is the minimum time when people are using the system. So most of today we're going to look inside the system, so I've switched over into a screen which shows my browser, and I'm going to log on as the system administrator, and from the log on screen I'm going to go in now into my administration screen. I've come up into the profile and I'm choosing administration, and here inside the system administration area of Sage CRM I can now choose the users area. And within users, you can see that there is on the middle columns, on the left hand of the middle columns, we've got user activity. So if I click there, you can see I've come straight into the user activity table. So this is found my profile, administration, users, user activity, and it is something that really only a system administrator can use, but we've navigated, as we can see here, all of the way down. And this is the screen that starts to provide us really with some very detailed logon tracking information. You can see we've got knowledge of who has logged on. We've got their full name, not only their username but password, but when they logged on. We can read across as well. We can see when they left the system. We can also see what browser they were using. So we can actually start to examine whether people are experiencing problems with Edge, or we can start to identify whether somebody is using an unsupported browser. You can see if you look at one of those, it's saying that there's an Opera browser that has come into the system, which is not directly a supported issue. But we do have here, as we can see, we've got the logon date and time. We can start to think about filtering this as well. We've got the log off message. We've got the browser, as I said, all of this information that is shown and is available here. Now, this screen will be constantly updating, so you can refresh this screen to get the correct snapshot of the information as people are logging in and logging out. And if I choose to filter this, I can actually go and filter either. You can see in the right-hand box, we can filter by a particular user. We can see if we're tracking down what a user has done in the system when they accessed it, whether they were looking at a piece of work at a particular time as well. We can start to work out who was in the system when issues or an incident occurred. We can see what happened during a date range, and we can also, as you can see here, filter by a particular range as well. So if we can only just focus in on those which are within a particular period of time, or as I've got here, the idea of the logoff method that has been used. I'm looking at forced, and I can see that I've filtered this, and I'm now looking at all those who have been thrown out of the system when they've closed the browser and somebody has then logged on into the browser as well. So these are forced logoffs within the system. Now, if I click on away from that tab which showed all user activity to current users, we can see that there are other tabs as well, the inactive users and the user summary. So this is very useful, being able to see who's in the system. I can see currently that I've got 3 sessions open within my system, and that's actually quite correct, because I've got my particular demo system that I use is a 3-user system. I've got 3 licenses to allow concurrent usage. So any of the demo users could log on into the system, but only 3 at any one time. And so this being able to filter, I can work out who's in the system, if I'm going to perform some maintenance before I start thinking about restarting IIS. And so we can concern who's in, so we can warn them if we're just about to lock the system, for example. Very useful for maintenance planning and seeing who's around. It also will tell you if you only have access within a company intranet. You can see as a good guess who is still in the building as well. When we've got the option here, which is to looking at the inactive users, this is very, very useful for the whole business of license management. So by identifying this, it tells us straight away whether we have got the potential for unused licenses as well. And it can also start to give us warnings if we have got problems with people who are choosing not to log on to the system when they should be. If you're trying to ensure compliance with particular rules about making sure that all transactions are entered in here in order to complete the due diligence around the sales process, if you have salespeople who are not entering the systems here, then you also have issue. So that's related to the wider question of compliance audits as well. Very useful to know who logs on, who doesn't log on, especially when you're coming to renewal cycles and the planning upgrades as well. So if I click now, I can start to think about filtering these as well, and I can start to go across, if I want to, into the reporting area. Now, I've pulled down the report menu. I'm looking at administrator reports, and if I look in here, we can see that there's a whole set of reports. There are 5 reports that are available to me. I just want to think about a couple of these: log on activity, logged on, users report. These are 2, and the log on activity report will show us the log on and log off times, the session duration, some of the historical access tracking, and we would, because it's a report, we'd be able to then export it to PDF or Excel. And in the case of the logged on users report, it will show similar information that we saw within the screen, but it becomes a distributable that you can then share with people, because you want to be able to create a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet to show at a particular point these are the people who are logged on into the system. Very useful for maintenance purposes and also for reporting real-time visibility of who is and how the system is being used. If I step on from this, this is where I've actually started to run this report. Reports, and you can see that I've actually running the user logon activity report. You can see that the report's going to be responsible for providing structured output. We can filter reports and create reports ourselves. So we can focus in on a particular user. We can focus in on what was happening at a particular time in terms of logons or logoffs. We can even report the idea of duration. And from this screen, you can see that we can export either to a PDF or to an Excel spreadsheet. So I am looking here at my user logon activity. I've run this as an HTML report, and it's going to be very helpful as I come to think about audit trails. This is reporting, and we can design our reports any way that we want, really, around the information to get the information that we need. I'm going to close this and report to the just main into the report administration screen, so I can start thinking about what we understand as the capabilities. Now, I've looked at reporting now, and so what I'd want to do is return back into the administration area and think about the fact that if we are constantly logging on, logging off, and recording this, there's going to be a lot of data accumulating inside the system over time, and it becomes appropriate that we should archive away older data. And we can archive via exporting to a spreadsheet, CSV file, for historical storage, so we can return to that. In order to do that, you can see on the right-hand side at the bottom of the screen, there is an Archive to File button. So if I click that, we can start that process, and I can choose how much data it is that I want to be able to archive off based on what the current date is. I'm choosing to go for only a few months, and I'm going to then and then I'm going to click now to archive to file. So I'm going to click archive to file, and it's done that for me. It's sent that across to the file, and we can see that it's popped up. And archiving prevents performance degradation. It's going to be in a file that we can see here. I've navigated down, as it was suggesting, underneath the logs folder. This is a temporary generation destination. We can actually go and move this anywhere we need in order to store that data securely, and it's a good thing in terms of this type of data, which holds obviously some degree of personal information in the form of the username and password, that administrative reports should be restricted by default. You can't look at all of this information. Now, we need to be mindful of everything that we see here in terms of oversharing. We mustn't overshare that data. We must make sure that we are complying with data protection policies as well. Okay. What sort of scenarios are we dealing with really when we are a system administrator and we can look at these locations, either directly, as you can see on the screen here, or where we are looking at the reports? Well, if you ever hear a complaint from a user saying that they were logged out unexpectedly, you would see information here whether there was actually something coming in using their logon, or whether it was a spontaneous, how they exited the system. We can also see here really a question about, what happens if somebody says they're out of licenses and they can't log on? And it also allows us to verify who seems to be, who is using the system from a regulatory compliance perspective. And when it comes to performance, we can see if there is a match between the number of users who are logged on at any particular point and the match then as well to the perceived points of poor performance as well. They don't always tally. It can be that poor performance is caused by external factors from Sage CRM. It's not necessarily a CRM matter, and it could be down to other factors other than such as network traffic. But let's start to wrap up and think about here some best practice associated with the monitoring of users. And the best practice is we need to think about reviewing the activity on a monthly basis, making sure that we're archiving regularly. We do generate a huge amount of data. We want to make sure that we are not monitoring users who aren't using the system. So we should think about setting users who don't log on into being a resource, or in fact reallocating their license. We want to be able to monitor the usage patterns using this as we plan our upgrades or as we plan changes to licenses. And we need to be able to think about that way in which we report the information and ensure that anything associated with the reporting about users is appropriately managed as well. So those are some of the best practice associations with our ability to monitor and user activity. And so what we've looked at in today's session, we've looked at how we can find that user activity information, how we go about filtering and analyzing the sessions contained, the details of the sessions contained within the reports, how we in fact go ahead and run reports that are based on it and not just the management screens, how we go about archiving and exporting the data from the systems, and where it means in terms of the management of licenses and how it can support all aspects of our security that we've been discussing, within the course. So that's our summary of where we are today, and that brings us therefore to the end of the session, a shorter session than some of the other lessons. But I wonder, as we've come to the end of our course, whether anyone has got any questions. Well, it doesn't look like there are any questions, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me on these training sessions. I look forward to seeing you on future events. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye.